Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this video, we want to emphasize on some issues regarding kafalah. First of all, let us understand the definition of kafalah, which consists of literal and technical meanings. In terms of literal meaning, the word kafalah is responsibility and stewardship, while technically it means a commitment to see or claim something in addition to an existing obligation that the third party agrees to perform if the first party fails to perform its obligation. Generally, to be easy to understand, the kafalah is a contract in which guarantor join with guaranteed parties and assumes the liabilities that they represent. The nature of kafalah is to provide assurance on the fulfillment of an obligation of the guaranteed party's liability. Regarding the concept of kafalah, first, it involves three parties, namely kafil, makful, and makful alaih. Second, construction contracts in which a bank will provide guarantees that one party will perform certain actions on behalf of another. The last one is bank provide guarantees that debtors will pay the creditors when certain obligations are due.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Naufal Hadi, metric number 2118981. We'll discuss the first issue, which is legal issue regarding kafalah. In this discussion, we will be using three legal sources, which is Contract Act 1950, B&M Kafalah Concept Paper, and the Major Law. If you didn't know what is Major Law, it was the Ottoman Empire's civil code and is regarded as the first effort to codify Sharia-based legislation. So we will discuss some discrepancies and questions that arise regarding kafalah through these three law sources. Firstly, we discuss the absolution of the guaranteed debtor. I will go straight to the point. There is a contradiction between the Major Law and Contract Act 1950 that we apply now. If when the whole or remaining debt had been paid by the guarantor, Article 648, the Major Law stated that the kafalah contract will change to hawalah contract. Now, the guarantor becomes as the transferee and the debtor is obliged to pay back the sum of money to the transferee, which is the guarantor. While Contract Act 1950 treat that event based on Section 81, the debtor will be released from the debt. Therefore, since the provision in Contract Act 1950 seems quite loose and give an advantage to the principal debtor, an amendment to the Contract Act 1950 should be made as it seems fairer because the debtor still holds the responsibility for the amount owing even if the contract has changed. Secondly, the treatment of multiple guarantor. As you can see, all these three legal codes had shared the same provision to the treatment of multiple guarantor, which is the guarantors are obligated to pay each an equal share of the debt if they become the guarantors at the same time. And if they become the guarantor independently, action may be taken against any one of them. So, the part in Contract Act 1950 and B&N Concept Paper of kafalah that we refer currently can be kept in its current form. And the last legal issue that will be peeled in this video is about the recourse and recovery from principal debtor. So first is when guarantor demand recourse and recovery. As there are many prerequisites to this ruling in Contract Act 1950, it is hard for the guarantor to demand recourse and recovery from the principal debtor, while in the Major Law, it is provided that the right of the guarantor to seek payment from the debtor for the amount he had been paid to the beneficiary. So, we can see that it has been allocated in Sharia law. Hence, a comment can be made in the Contract Act 1950, then recourse and recovery from the principal debtor will be possible and it will give justice to the guarantor. Moreover, when the creditor seek recourse, or we can say that the creditor want to get back their financing return, Contract Act 1950 had allocated that in Section 81, the creditor may seek recourse from both the debtor and the guarantor at the same time. This is permissible because it is supported by the majority of Islamic jurists. However, according to Maliki, the creditor must first exhaust the debtor's principal claim before seeking recourse from the guarantor. But don't worry, it is recognized under Malaysian law in Bankruptcy Act 1967 in Section 2 and 5 in bracket 3 that can be applied to the social guarantor. So we can conclude that the provision in the Contract Act 1950 regarding guarantee don't obstruct Islamic finance, since the concept indicated that they are Sharia compliant as followed by the majority of experts. So it is considered that the Contract Act doesn't need to be altered to harmonize it with Sharia, since the presence of Bankruptcy Act of 1967 properly addressed the same issues of differing legal perspective.
Next is the application of Kafalah contract in the Islamic Financing Guarantee Scheme of Credit Guarantee Corporation. This corporation launched the first Islamic finance guarantee scheme on the market. Interest-free banking scheme was the name at the time. CGC paved a new way of financing enterprises which are keen on having halal financing to fund their business. The question is, does it coincide with Sharia? Related to this issue, the Bank Negara Malaysia and Sharia Advisory Council issued a resolution on 27 October 2005 stating that CGC's Islamic guarantee system for Islamic financial institutions which delivering Islamic financial products to consumers is Sharia compliant. Other than that, permission to impose ujrah in the contract of Kafalah, there are 2 points of view regarding this matter. First, it is permissible. Due to maslahah and the needs of the community, charging ujrah for daman or Kafalah should be allowed, based on the needs of the people. Syekh Ahmad Hadi Abdullah said that if the contract has been stipulated with a charge of fee, the requirement must be regarded as valid and enforceable. He also said that a contract of daman or Kafalah is kind of istihab, not a kind of court. Second, some Islamic scholars state that it is not permissible for charging ujrah in the contract of daman or Kafalah, since Kafalah is a voluntary based or called as Huquq al-Tabarruk. It may constitute a court contract with stipulated benefit, and this is forbidden in Sharia. Therefore, the benefits of providing guarantee scheme based on Kafalah contract. Commercial banks usually adopt 5 Cs as a way of assessing a borrower's application for fund. The 5 Cs include character, capacity, capital, condition, and collateral. Hence, lending to small businesses is viewed as a risk by bank because of the danger that the debtor would be unable to repay the debt. CGC's main objective is to assist marginal but potentially viable small and medium-scale enterprises, particularly those enterprises without collateral or those with inadequate collateral and track record, to obtain financing from financial institutions.
Last but not least, we will continue the discussion with issue arise in Kafalah adapted in modern banking. The first issue is whether an agent could become a guarantor. The Sharia Council advised that an agent should not be named as a guarantor. Even so, in a collection of Fatwa Kadikan, the Hanafis have decided that when an agent for sale has sold something and become a guarantee for the price, such undertaking is not acceptable. However, if a recovery agency becomes a guarantee for the price, such an undertaking is legitimate. This known piece explains that an agent can become a guarantor if there is proof that he is acting not just as an arrangement agency but also as a recovery agent. Next, the issue of whether it is permissible to invest in a local investment that is guaranteed by the government, even the profit is much lower than that. The Sharia Council of the Kuwait Finance House determined that investing in this project is allowed. This is because the government's assurance of a minimum profit level of 6%, even if the profit is substantially below this percentage, demonstrate the extent to which the government intends to fulfill its commitment to investors. Lastly, issue on fees imposed on guarantees for the issuance of sukuk. The Sharia Advisory Council agreed about the Sharia notion of Kafalah al-Uj which is guarantee with fees applicable to Dana Jamin Sukuk Issuance Guarantee Facility. According to this concept, the Sukuk issuer is the guaranteed party. Dana Jamin will act as the guarantor and the investor will be the beneficiary. Dana Jamin can also claim the amount paid by the Sukuk issuer to the investor through this guarantee mechanism. The repayment time for the amount charged by Dana Jamin from the Sukuk issuer must be based on current market practice with the approval of the contractual parties, namely Dana Jamin and the Sukuk issuer, and must take the size of the claim into consideration. In conclusion, kafalah is widely used in Islamic banking in Malaysia. Personal guarantee, bank guarantee, Islamic credit card, and Islamic deposit insurance scheme are structured using the concept. In terms of applicable law, applicable to kafalah, it is evident from case law on Islamic banking that the substantive law is the Contract Act 1950. In Islamic banking, guarantee has been commonly accepted. However, the practice was rather accepted in the form of classical Islamic guarantee, that is al-kafalah. This is to make the arrangement consistent with the basic philosophy of Islamic banks. We hope that the government will have permission to continue to strengthen the Islamic financial system in Malaysia slowly yet steadily.